I'd like to ask another question about Schindler's List, and particularly, obviously, with Eamon. Real-life character, and this is a performance which has been rated by the AFI, by Premiere Magazine, by a number of magazines as in the top 100 greatest on-screen performances in cinema history, for whatever that means. But here's, again, kind of based on a real-life character, a real-life person. To what extent, when you're there constructing that character, constructing that performance, how much of it is research? How much of it is your own sense of kind of dramatic license? How much of it is on the page?
A lot of that performance was Stephen. A lot of the detail in it, like the moment that he's on the balcony, he puts the gun on his shoulders and he sort of swings to loosen up the morning exercise routine. That was a Stephen idea. A lot of it was, a lot of the nuances came from Stephen, I have to say. He was fantastic. I researched the role quite a lot because aside from the Thomas Keneally book, Schindler's Ark, there was a documentary on, a British documentary on Oscar Schindler, and the recordings of various survivors that were used in that documentary are in the Imperial War Museum library, and I used those because they were the same, exactly the same characters. And there were more details, little more anecdote stories about survivors talking about Armand Gerd, which just gave me a bigger profile, a more detailed profile of this man. In fact, I even got one, I went with a Polish cinematographer who I asked to come in and help me translate paragraphs of a Polish account of his trial, which I remember was there. But in the end, there's the script. So you have all this information, but in the end, you have to. There's a certain thing which is the script, which is what you have to honour. But I suppose somehow, I mean, I'm not sure. People always ask, what research did you do? And I think often it's just to satisfy a neurosis in the actor that he's researched something. I don't know that actually it can help you, because I've seen actors be brilliant in rehearsal rooms with no research. They just act, and it's amazing. But I think sometimes your imagination can be inspired by reading and by experiencing things too. Does that answer your question?
I think so. But on the other side of the spectrum, you have someone like Harry in Bruges. Is it more fun playing a character like that, or even a Voldemort, where you don't necessarily have to deal with the kind of nuances of human behavior? You kind of have that broader canvas.
No, that was funny with Mike Newell on the Harry Potter. I think I was trying to make Voldemort sort of detailed and subtle. And he said, forget it, come on. So, no, I mean, I get this, when I rushed up like in that clip, you know, I actually realised I got a lot of enjoyment rushing up to poor Daniel Radcliffe. I can touch you. That was Mike Newell who said, come on, loosen up a bit, you know, enjoy this.
But you were actually hesitant to accept the role, from my understanding of it. Why?
I was hesitant, yeah. Well, from one very practical reason is that I didn't want to sign myself up for an extended period of time. I signed up for 2 movies. I didn't know where I would go. I thought that, and I just had a sort of, you know, what is it? It's a big franchise. I wasn't familiar with the books. I just sort of, but then actually meeting Mike Newell and the wonderful casting director Mary Selway, who was a friend and who was casting the film. She was very ill at the time and she died before the film was finished. But she put wonderfully benign pressure on me to accept it, and I'm glad I did.
You mentioned obviously not wanting to be restricted with time. I mean, you mentioned the kind of number of films that you had this year, obviously with stage work. And just talking about that balance between the stage work and the screen work, how much of an inattention is there between what gets the priority or maintaining that balance?
That's a good question. I think I've always identified certain classic roles on stage that I wanted to play, and there are ones I want to play. And I love being. I mean, you often fail, but being in front of an audience is another demand on an actor, which I love. The telling of a story to an audience in real time, and feeling. Even now, I can feel you are listening, and there's an energy about me talking and you listening in the air. and that put into a drama is very potent. I love the theatre. So it hasn't been, if the play is right, it's not been difficult to say, I will not do any films for this season or for this year because I really want to play Oedipus. So have there been conflict? I mean, sometimes I think probably I've had to let go of a film or something. Because often the offers for films will come at quite short notice. So you've just accepted a play and someone says, so-and-so wants you to be doing this film and be in this film, and you can't do it. You have to say no, and that, but I don't regret any of the theatre commitments that I've made.
Do you think that your stage work has informed your screen work and vice versa?
Yeah, I get asked that. I think in some ways there's a kind of good trade-off. I mean, I think the discipline of repetition in rehearsal in front of an audience, it gives you a grounding, a foundation, if you like, a technique. It can also lead you, you can also flatten you out. So the thing about films, but that's a skill which is helpful for filming. At the same time, the moment of combustion, the one take, you've only got 3 takes, you've got to nail it, you've got to hit it, you've got to find something. That pressure you don't have in the theatre, so that is an adrenaline factor. You've got to sort of, I don't know what it is, you pray and you hope that something happens when the cameras roll. Sometimes it doesn't happen. But there's different adrenaline is working in different ways. But I think the detail of film can sometimes be useful back in the theatre. I don't know really. You go on learning. You never stop learning. Every new job is you feel like you're starting all over again.
And do you feel that you can control the perception of a character more on stage than you can on screen, particularly from an audience's point of view?
I would have thought you would have controlled it less. I mean, I would have thought with editing and the way things are shaped and cut and music, I would have thought that the director controls a performance in film. I would have thought on stage that you can't manipulate, or you can manipulate the audience's perception much less, because the very fact of our physical presence up here, we can't be cut and changed or at different angles. We are who we are now, and that's what the audience experiences. So you have to give yourself up to that. Of course, you try and project a character with voice, gesture, all those things, and the director will support you with scenery and the play, of course, and the words you're saying. But I think the audience reads, I believe the audience reads, as much as they see the skill of an acting performance in the theatre, they read the spirit of actors, and that you can't change. And that's why, as an actor, if I want to go and see a certain actor in the theatre, it's as much because of their skill as for the spirit of who they are. I'm going to see Vanessa Redgrave. She's a great actress, but she has a spirit which is extraordinary.
Well, I asked that question particularly with a view to a character such as Justin Quayle in The Constant Gardener. On the one hand, he's a hero. He's the film's protagonist. He's the one that leads us through, from the beginning to the end. And on the other hand, he's a very atypical hero. He's somewhere where that kind of inner conflict is happening literally on the inside. You don't see that. You're kind of exploring that gap between what the world sees and what he's feeling on the inside. And in our discussions in the past, you mentioned how you think that some people misread it, that you felt he was a very brave character, and maybe some people misread his strength for being a passive character.
Well, I think he's passive. I think he reads, because she's so active. Tessa, Rachel Weisz's character, is so engagingly active and positive. We know very early on she's active in doing good things, and he's a bit grayer deliberately.